Pretty good, staying busy. So we are on number 4 of our coaching calls.
Wow, it's gone by so fast.
It has. It's been really exciting. I feel like we've done a whole lot. So this session, you did some assessments. I'd like to talk about those some more if that's okay with you. There's anything that you wanted to talk about? I mean, we're focusing on the assessments, but again, this is about you and what you want to get out of it. As always, everything we talk about stays between you, me, and my instructor. And, well, apparently my 2-year-old today.
I think that'll be
okay. Awesome. So, you did a few different assessments over the past week, and I was wondering, is there one particular that you wanted to talk about more than any of the others?
I think most of them were pretty straightforward. Like the HRA that I did, I felt like was pretty straightforward. I didn't really discover anything new about myself in that one. That was pretty much just my height and weight and overall health, which I think is pretty good. I think probably the thing that I've been trying to cognizantly be working on the most is on the wellness wheel one, under like the breathing dimension, because I feel like that's the one dimension that I've been seriously struggling with, especially in the last semester, with just, taking time to just be and not be running or stressing or cooking or cleaning or whatever else I have to do. And so I feel like that's probably my most pressing, one of my assessments that I'm working on right
now. The breathing, you were talking about how it's something that's pressing to you and you want to do it outside of daily life, kind of like more of a mindful breathing.
Yeah, I just, like, when I consider the breathing dimension, I'm thinking of, like meditation or anything like yoga, to have that deep breathing and, like, be aware of your breath and how you're feeling and kind of keep in touch with what you're going through or feeling, which is what I don't do sometimes, Even when I'm doing other things like climbing or even working sometimes I realize, like, I forget to breathe, and all of a sudden I take this really deep breath, and I'm like, oh man, I'm like holding my breath for way too long, and I'm, like, I prefer not to do that,
It's generally not recommended as safe.
Yeah, especially climbing, when I'm, like, trying to climb, and then I'm holding my breath, and I get down, and I'm like, oh man, I'm a little lightheaded, like,
yeah, that doesn't sound like it would be very safe, especially when you're doing something like climbing.
Yeah, exactly. So I've been trying to focus on even just being more aware of, like, my breathing, more aware of how I'm feeling and stuff like that.
Gotcha. Nope. Up, down. So you were telling me how you want to be more aware of your breath when you're climbing. And you see it as something different, like your breathing dimension is something different when you're climbing and you're running versus, like, meditation. Would that be?
Yeah, I think that when I'm meditating, I'm more aware, immensely aware of my breathing, and I feel calmer, and I use my breath. I'm not just aware of it, but I can utilize it to help me like feel a certain way, to calm down or to de-stress or unwind or whatever like that. Or to take a couple deep breaths when I get angry or frustrated. And so it like kind of brings me back down to center. Whereas when I'm like running or climbing or doing anything, even working, I find myself so involved in whatever I'm doing that I'm not even, I don't know, I'm not even like aware that I'm holding my breath or something until afterwards, you know?
Yeah, I could see how that would happen. I teach yoga, and a lot of it is just reminding the class to breathe. So I could see how you'd have to kind of constantly remind yourself to breathe with doing stuff like, especially I would imagine climbing, because you're kind of in these positions that can kind of be precarious.
Right. Like that's exactly what I need, I feel like, is sometimes just like a Walkman that says breathe, you know, like every, like a bad blonde joke or something, you know? But as I'm climbing, like, okay, breathe, okay, move, okay, breathe, you know? Because that's helpful when I'm taking yoga classes before, and the teacher says, okay, now remember to, you know, watch your breath or whatever like that. And I'm like, oh, yeah, why aren't I remembering to do that? And it's so helpful, and I feel like that's like a little reminder would be very helpful to me.
Is that something that would actually be something you could apply?
I don't know. I don't know if, I mean, besides trying to remain aware of it and remind myself of it, I don't know if I could actually have somebody else, like, or have a way to set a reminder for myself. Unless I have, like, one of my climbing buddies be like, breathe, you know?
That's not a terrible idea.
Just like, as I'm, like, hanging off the cliff, and they're just like, breathe, you know? Which might be worth giving it a shot, you know?
Yeah, it couldn't hurt, I don't think.
But in that situation, it's like, remembering to breathe is helpful for maintaining my energy and, you know, not getting dependent and stuff. Whereas concentrating on my breathing, aside from that, is helpful for, like, stress or calming down and stuff like that. So I think that's probably the more important aspect of the breathing that I'd like to get better at, you know?
Okay, looking for more of the energy benefits and the calming benefits of the breathing.
Right. Like, just being aware that I can use my breath to help me out in situations that I get, like, super stressed out, instead of just, like, freaking out and stressing out and, you know, crying to my husband over my B that I got on my test. I could just take some deep breaths, calm down, it's going to be okay, you know? Which is easy to remember now when you're like, I'm not stressing out over it, you know? But it's hard to remember, like, at the time, I feel like.
Yeah. How do you feel that your reaction to, say, maybe cry over your B might be an instinct over just taking a few deep breaths and moving forward?
Yeah, I think that it's because I don't think about that I can use my breath to, like, control my emotions or my feelings. And so my knee-jerk response is just to get upset, you know? It's like just my, remember that thing that, it was part of our wellness thing that we read this past week, I think, and it really stuck out to me because it was about how the guy had a knee-jerk reaction, and, like, a plane went over his head, responded in such a way that was just the emotional part of his brain, like, taking over, and so his physical side wasn't thinking. Do you remember reading about that? Like, that's what it almost seems like happens to me. Like, my emotional brain just floods, and then I can't think logically about to remind myself to breathe at that time until, like, after that passes, and I, like, reset my brain to think again, you know? So it's like I need something to, like a rubber band to snap or something to, like, trigger me to be like, okay, you need to, like, calm down or you need to breathe or whatever, you know? But I don't know what that is. But
What about the rubber band idea?
yeah, I mean, that could work because it's like a physical thing that I could, like, snap myself into. But my problem when I've tried, like, tying a string around my finger or a rubber band is that I forget what the purpose is, like, when I'm, you know what I mean? Like, I'm like, oh, I know that I have this here for some reason, but don't remember why, you know? So that's why it hasn't worked in the past. But that being said, I feel like if I really committed to it, I feel like it would be a viable idea, you know?
Yeah. I think that if it's something that you're committed to trying, that it could be a viable idea. It definitely sounds to me like you're searching for something, not necessarily the rubber band, but something that'll help bring you back to center.
Yeah, exactly. Just something that'll pull me out of that like emotional knee-jerk response that I don't even realize that I'm getting into until, like, you know, 10 minutes later when I was calmed down enough to realize that I'm like, oh, well, that was silly. You know? Why did I cry? That's kind of funny. You know? Or why did I just snap at my husband for no reason? You know? I know that I'm not mad at him. I know that he didn't do anything, but yet I'm still angry, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of hard, which brings us right back around to breathing, which I feel like would help me before I do something, like say something that I'll regret, or, you know, be angry over something that I shouldn't be angry over. I think breathing would help me to calm it down, or reel it in, you know what I mean?
You're very focused on the breathing, and you've mentioned the crying a few times, and then you also recently mentioned that you snap at your husband. You get upset for no reason. Is there anything that you feel kind of triggers some of those reactions more than others?
I think it totally depends on the level of stress that I'm feeling at that moment, because especially with, like, my husband, or even crying or anything, I feel like if I'm in a happy mood and I'm not stressed out, it takes a lot for me to get mad or upset or anything like that. Like, it takes a lot. But if I'm stressed out over whatever, the baby was crying all day, or I'm behind in my homework, or whatever the case may be, it takes nothing for me to get, like, upset, you know? And so I feel like it's all about my level of stress from that day, which isn't fair to other people, you know? Like, it's not his fault that I'm stressed out and the baby was crying and I didn't do any homework and I've got a headache and whatever, you know?
I understand. My husband would tell you a similar story.
Which logically we know, you know? Like, logically I know that it's not his fault, and I know that he has nothing to do with that, but can't stop it, you know?
Yeah. Sometimes stress can lead us to use our loved ones as our own little personal punching bag.
It's true. Yeah, and that's usually what I tell them after, like, afterwards when we made up. I'm like, you should just feel really lucky because I love you so much that you're the one that gets to see all of this.
Yeah.
But I feel bad, I want that to be the thing that I do.
So instead of using him like your punching bag, it sounds like you're wanting to use breathing as a way to cope with your stress, because it sounds like the underlying concern isn't necessarily the not breathing, but it's more of the stress and how to deal with that.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I feel like the breathing is maybe a solution, a possible solution for the stress. But yes, I think you're right. I think the main underlying problem is definitely the stress, which seems to go in ebbs and flows, just like everything in life. Last semester, or 2 semesters ago, I was taking 3 classes, which is over full time, and all of them, it was like one of them was like an intense writing class and research class too, but yet I was not stressed out. My mindset going into it was like, I got this. I put little post-it notes like on my wall that said like, you're doing awesome, I know I can do this, and like little things all around the house to keep me motivated. And the whole semester, like, I feel like I felt good. I felt, even though it was super intense, I felt like I got this. Like, I didn't stress out very much over anything. But yet this semester, I don't know if it's just because it's getting so close to the end and I'm already checked out, or I'm ready to take my pack off, or what, but man, I'm on the struggle bus for sure with like stress and emotions for this semester. No matter how much I talk myself into like, you got this, you can do this, you're doing great, I'm like, I am done. I can't even handle it. Which is odd, I feel like.
Well, they don't call it senioritis for nothing.
It's true.
But bearing that in mind, you said that you had your post-its notes that seemed to help keep your stress levels at a minimum. Were there other things that you might have done that helped to mitigate some of that stress?
I feel like I was exercising more. I was definitely making time to climb at least twice a week, and then I was running at the time like 3 times a week at least, which I remember thinking at the time, like, how am I doing this and still like keeping up with all my schoolwork and doing everything that I need to do, and my house was a mess, but I didn't care about that so much. Like, I had everything else under control, you know what I mean? And now I feel like it's like, I've got too much to do, I can't possibly go running, or no, I've got too much to do, I'm too tired to go climbing, or whatever, And so I feel like, aside from like the post-it notes and stuff like that, and just my attitude, I felt like my attitude was better. So I don't know if that's a result from the running and the climbing and the post-it notes, or if all of that helped my attitude to get better, or if my attitude made me feel good enough to go do all those things. I don't know, but I felt like my attitude was definitely better.
What are some ways that you think you might be able to bring that attitude back to where it was, where you were less stressed out?
I don't know. I think it's just going to be a matter of me, like I did before, just being like, just thinking that I can do it because I've done it before, and just being like consciously trying to have a positive outlook on it, And I feel like in my head, which is kind of silly, but I feel like I can't start now. I feel like this semester's done. I can't possibly change by the end of the semester. But I feel like maybe next term I can start fresh with a new outlook, and then time to do the things that help me to feel less stressed too.
I want to say you can always teach an old dog new tricks. But on the same token, I can identify with the fact that there's like less than a week left in the semester and just power through it and get it over with. So with that in mind, and you expressed an interest in kind of resetting yourself in this gap between this class and the next classes, what are some ways that you think that might be possible?
To reset? Well, I think traveling home, I'm traveling as soon as I leave here, or as soon as the semester ends, I'm going home to see my family, which I think is just going to add more stress onto me, so I don't think I should really count that. Because usually going home to see my family is super stressful. But then I'm driving back to Colorado with my husband, and so we're going to make like a little road trip of it and like see all the like kitschy like world's largest ball of twine or whatever, you know, on the way home. So I feel like that'll be like a nice little vacation for us and like get to hang out together and not have schoolwork or anything. And then when I get home, I'll have still, you know, a few days before the next term starts. So I'm just planning on like climbing and, you know, going running or taking my dog on a hike or just doing a bunch of stuff that I feel like will help me to kind of relax and get prepared for my final semester and just kind of, I just want to keep up my grades and finish on a high and not be like dragging myself across the finish line. You know what I mean?
Yeah. On your personal core value assessment, you scored adventure and affection really high. Are there ways that you think you might incorporate those two in your vacation and in this interim between your classes to help reset you for your next set of classes?
For sure. Like, adventure, and I think my other one was like fun and playfulness or something. Like, that's like my favorite things in the world. Like, I love going on trips or on road trips or backpacking or going on climbing trips or whatever, just doing something that I'm not really sure where we're going to go or what's going to happen, but it seems really cool and it's going to be fun and, you know, well, I love doing stuff like that, so yes, absolutely. I feel like this road trip and then also, you know, the few days that I have in between getting home and starting school again, for sure. I will pack up my dog and put her little backpack on and we will go into the mountains and find some squirrels to chase and caves to explore. And I feel like that will just do wonders for my soul, you know?
Have you ever considered perhaps continuing that momentum and looking at your classes less of as a requirement, but more of as a learning adventure?
I've thought about that just in the fact that one of my bottom 5 strengths on that character strength was love of learning. And so I was trying to figure out how to like maybe use that and like build it up a little bit. And so I was thinking what you just said to try to look at my new classes as opportunities for growth and experience and a new knowledge that I'm going to gain from them instead of like, oh my god, I have 3 grade point level at a certain number. And I feel like looking at numbers and grades is what really like takes the fun or adventure out of learning. It's like super stressful, and I have to do well or else, or whatever, and so it makes it so that it's not even fun to learn. It's just a colossal headache.
Sounds like it's not necessarily a dislike of learning that had you score that one so low, but more of a stress due to pressure to perform.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree with that, because I've taken classes just for fun, like, not like physics or anything like that, but like wilderness trekking classes or math and compass classes or first aid or something like that, and I've enjoyed them thoroughly. Like, I've really enjoyed learning. I've enjoyed going out and like applying new skills and everything like that. And I was really looking forward to, even like when I got these books for these classes and stuff, I was like, oh, this looks really interesting. Like, I'm really excited. But then it's absolutely what you said about performing, because as soon as class starts and I look at the syllabus and like how much everything's worth, I'm like, oh man, this is gonna be so hard, or whatever. So I feel like yeah, I like to learn. I just don't like to have to learn and do well, or something. I don't know, something.
I kind of get the impression that it's more of a hanging on the doing well rather than a pressure to learn.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like if there wasn't any tests, I'd be fine. If we just got like a smiley face at the end of the semester,
It's like a little sticker chart.
Yeah, I would feel much better, I feel like. Like maybe a smirk if you could have done better, a smirky smile. But like, I feel like that would take a lot of pressure off.
Just grade yourself in emoji.
Yeah. Like the upside down smiley face for like, oh, let's do better next time. What was you thinking?
What if you self-assigned yourself emojis? Like, before the semester, like, decide which grade is which emoji, and then just, like, look at it with emoji.
I like that better. That makes it more funny than intimidating. Like, I'll just cover up on my computer the A or whatever with like a smiley face or like a smirky face. Not even look at my grades throughout the whole semester. I'll just keep track on my own of what I get and then give myself my little smiley stickers.
I would play into your humor that you like to use.
That's true. I feel like it would make it a lot more funny.
That's a button. You don't need a button. So maybe the smiley faces might be something to try to help kind of bring that zest and that playfulness back into school for this last semester.
Yeah, I feel like that would definitely help, and I feel like just trying to go into it with a time frame of like, this is it, like, this is the last push that I have. It's that last hill on your run that you're like, I know after this hill, I can rest. There's like a flat part, and I can just take it easy and catch my breath. And so I feel like maybe thinking about it in that way too, like, alright, this is my last push. And then after that, like, I can relax, and I never have to do anything again if I don't want to, and I can just take classes because I want to and not because I'm, like, trying to get a degree or something, So it's like, if I can just keep that in mind, I feel like next semester will be better than this semester. Stress-wise,
It sounds like we used your assessments to really get to kind of the root of where you were trying to go with some of your bigger goals and help you find some ways to kind of define what your goals are moving forward. Would you say that would be kind of correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the assessments, although they were very involved, I feel like, a lot of them were really enlightening too. And they, I kind of like learning stuff like that about myself. So I think it's fun.
Nice. So, is there anything else you wanted to talk about this session?
No, I think that was it. I really appreciate your time and insight.
Thank you. Well, I'm looking forward to meeting with you again next week.
Yes, me too.
Go.
Hey there, how are you doing today?
Good, a little crazy, but it's life with the toddler.
I guess so, huh? Well, I really enjoyed meeting with you last week, and I was anxious to meet with you again. And I wanted to thank you for taking the time to fill out all of those assessments for me.
You're welcome. It was quite an undertaking, but it was really interesting to kind of learn a little bit more about myself.
Yeah, sometimes they can be very revealing, I feel like, right?
I definitely agree. There's a couple where I learned a little bit more about myself than I had anticipated. Yes. Mm-hmm. Sorry.
So again, I just wanted to go over that everything that we talk about is confidential, and this is all about you. So we're just going to kind of go off of what you feel like talking about today, but we are going to concentrate on going over those assessments that you so diligently filled out for me. So as far as the assessments, I've finished looking through them, and a lot of strengths popped out at me that you have. It seems like your overall health is really good, your activity level, your blood pressure, cholesterol, all that good stuff, movement in your wellness dimensions. You're doing great in all of those areas. So I just want to take a minute and just commend you on that. I think that's awesome.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Everyone always told me that when I had kids that it would all change, and I've kind of made it a personal mission to not let that happen.
Wow, that's interesting. So by other people telling you that this is going to be a certain way and you're going to lose this activity that you love, you've made it your mission to prove them wrong.
Yeah, I kind of like doing that a little bit.
Yeah, but it seems to be working for you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not one of those like, oh, you couldn't jump off a bridge, so I'm like, I'm gonna go jump off a bridge. But it's definitely, I find people doubting my ability to do something that might be healthy for me a challenge, and I like meeting or exceeding that challenge.
That's great. It sounds like within reason you really thrive under adversity.
Yes, I think I put that on one of my assessments that I thrive in chaos.
Good. Actually, that's a great thing to know about yourself, though, isn't it? To have that as a strength that you can fall back on in times that you need it.
Yes. With my husband being military, I spend a lot of time on my own, and I like to kind of pile everything on my plate all at once. And sometimes I feel like the more I have on my plate, the better I am at getting everything done. Like before I was working, I had a really hard time getting the dishes done or remembering to sweep the house, like menial housework. But now that I have less time in my day to get it done, I feel like I actually get it done.
Wow, so it sounds like you're seemingly doing better at getting as much done as you need to get done when there's more pressure on you.
Yeah, it kind of, I think, goes back to even when I was in grade school, because I was always a procrastinator. Like I would be the kid like up until 2 a.m. doing a project that I had 2 months to do.
Right?
So I've gotten away from doing that with my homework. I like to try and get my homework done, especially because raising a toddler is very unpredictable, and I have to account for that unpredictability. Okay. But I kind of fill that space elsewhere. I pick up more classes to teach and chase him around the house.
How does it feel to you when you finish something earlier than you need to get it done?
Like a huge relief. It's getting something done before I have to have it done is almost the equivalent of going to like a 2-hour yoga class. Like I'm just like,
Sounds like it's very refreshing and relieving for you to finish early and get that off of your plate.
yeah, it's crazy because I don't like my plate to be empty, but I really like emptying it.
I can absolutely understand that. It feels good. It feels like a weight is being lifted off of you.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me, when you were taking your assessments, did you learn anything new, or did anything new become apparent to you during your assessments?
I was kind of interested in the, I think it was the Myers-Briggs one where I had like all the different little letters. And my letters, I can't remember exactly what all of them were, but the combination of the 4, it said in the results that it was really rare, like not normal for me to have that particular combination.
Yes, I think you were an extrovert, intuitive, feeling, and perceiving, if I remember correctly.
I think it was judging, but I think all the other ones are right, yeah.
Yeah. So what do you find surprising about that?
I wasn't expecting to be judging.
Okay. Tell me more about that.
So, I'm usually pretty much like I like everything to have order, and I like to be in control of my immediate life. But the rest of it, I'm just like, whatever, doesn't really matter. And the word judging it seemed to have such a negative connotation to it that I was like, how can I be judgy? Like, I don't care if that person's shirt doesn't match their shoes. Like, I don't care. But when I looked at what it actually meant to be judging, I was like, yeah, that makes sense.
So your initial reaction was, oh, it's like I'm judging other people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which isn't true.
No, not at all. So I tend to consider myself very accepting of other people, and I consider that perhaps one of my strengths is that I don't care what color you are, what size you are, what you do when you go home. Like, as long as you're a decent person, like, that's all that matters to me.
Yeah, it sounds like fairness is important to you, which I think was also one of your signature strengths, was fairness. And it sounds like that kind of flows right into that.
Yeah, I definitely, authenticness was one of those things that definitely popped up, like being really, just being honest with who you are, and being authentic, and that candor was really important to me. I really just, I have no patience for two-faced behavior.
Right. So it sounds like for people being honest and authentic with what they want and who they are is important to them.
Yes. And I'm totally okay with people not necessarily knowing who they are, and me being able to use some of my strengths to help them find that. But for somebody to purposefully act one way in front of somebody else because that's how they expect that person expects them to behave, like, just be you. And if somebody else doesn't have time for that, then they're not worth being in your life.
That makes sense. If somebody is still trying to discover themselves, then you're you're okay with that, that's their authentic self right then. But if they're just doing something to try to placate or please somebody else, you don't like that as much.
No, it feels really false to me, and like I'm not really sure why it bothers me so much, but like I just don't have the patience for lies.
When you say you don't have the patience for lies, what do you feel happens when somebody lies to you? Like, how does that affect you?
Well, I mean, one, it breaks that trust. It definitely puts them in kind of a different light, like, because once that trust is broken, it's really hard to build back. So I kind of get put into this position of like, I want to trust you, but you already lied to me, so I'm not really sure if I can trust you. And I have a really hard time with that. Like, I like to be able to just like trust the good in people. And I know it's kind of naive considering like people are people and there's good people and bad people, but I really I see the person in the parking lot asking for money, and I don't see somebody that's going to go turn around and take that $5 I give them and buy booze. I see a person that's going to go buy themselves a sandwich. So I don't know. I get frustrated with my husband because he's the person that kind of sees, they're like, well, he's just going to go buy booze with that dollar. I'm like, but he's asking for money and he tells me this story, and why I have no reason to not believe him.
Yeah.
So.
Seems like you really try to see the best in people in each situation.
I do. And I think it's both a strength and a weakness, because I do tend to see the strength and the positive in people first, but at the same time it's a weakness because I set myself up for disappointment sometimes. Like I set myself up for that person to turn around and not be who they say they are, or not do with that dollar what they say they're going to do with it. And it's kind of heartbreaking a little bit to run into people that aren't as authentic or genuine.
How often do you think that happens? I mean, how often do you think that that's a high percentage of times that happens, or do you think that most people are authentic?
I like to think that most people are authentic. I kind of think that if I thought otherwise, I wouldn't still believe what I believe.
That makes sense, for sure. I'm curious about one of the assessments. The way that you responded was things that you were looking to change in the next 6 months or in the future, and one of them was coping better with stress. Tell me more about that.
I get stressed out pretty easily, and it's one of those things, like, because I keep my plate crazy full all the time, but at the same time, like, I kind of feel like I'm always almost at boiling, and 1 second too long on the stove, and I'm boiling over and making a big mess all over everything. So I kind of feel like I need to learn when to take the lid off before I'm boiling over.
So do you feel like you cut it pretty close sometimes with the amount of stress chaos that you like to have in your life and the amount that is too much for you?
Definitely. I'm almost always walking that tightrope of, is this too much stress or is this just the right amount?
Sounds like that's kind of a precarious place to be sometimes.
Especially if you're my husband.
Tell me more about that.
Usually, my husband is the one that he's my punching bag. I take a lot of my stress out on him. Like, if I'm concerned that we are cutting it close between buying groceries and buying gas. And then I also have to make sure that I get to work on time, and I have this other job later, and then I have to get to swim lessons. And my husband's been sitting on the couch for an hour playing video games, but there's dishes in the sink, and I'm just like, why don't you do the dishes? And like it turns into this big, huge issue where all it would be is, hey, honey, I've got a lot on my plate. Do you think you could wash the dishes for me? That would help me feel less stressed. But no, it's like, why did you do the dishes? Why are you sitting here playing video games?
Yeah. But it seems like it's a automatic reaction because you're under so much stress just to snap instead of just asking for what you need. Do you find it hard to ask for what you need?
Yeah. I like to try and do it all. I feel like I pride myself a little bit too much in being able to handle everything, that I don't tend to reach out until I'm already boiling over.
I can understand that. It seems like you're a very independent and strong person, so I can understand as why you would want to just handle everything yourself, because you've been on your own in the past when he's been away, and you've had to do things on your own. And so sometimes I can imagine that might be challenging to remember that now you can rely. There's two of you, you know?
Yeah. My husband very frequently, especially after he's been gone more than like 3 weeks. 3 weeks is kind of that magic amount of time for me to be like, I've got this. I don't need you. And then he comes back and I was like, I've got this. I don't need you. And he's like, but this is my house too. And I'm like, but you're never here.
Do you find it difficult to transition back then to having him present?
Yes. It's not so bad right now because he's been home a lot more. But that transition has gotten harder and harder as time's gone on. When we were first married, I didn't have a job. I went to school. I didn't have any friends. So I was an online student. I never really left the house. So him being there or not being there, like, it wasn't as much of a transition. Whereas, like, now I'm juggling work and school and toddler and keeping the house together. And he leaves and I get this really good rhythm going, and then he comes back and he wants to be part of the rhythm, and I'm just like, you're making my whole record skip. Stop it.
Yeah, it sounds like your chaos is finally perfectly balanced, and then all of a sudden throwing something else in, even though it's a good thing, him returning, it just throws off that balance a little bit, and so it's hard to get it back.
Yeah, it's kind of like sticking your finger on a top when it's spinning. Like, if you try and touch a spinning top, it just kind of crashes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I noticed one of your strengths in the VIA character strengths was creativity. How do you think you might be able to use creativity to discover ways that you could better involve your husband back into the chaos and also better communicate what you need to him?
Well, one of the most recent things that I attempted is I've had a little whiteboard on the refrigerator with my like weekly tasks. Like one side is broken down into daily tasks, which it seems redundant, but with so much going on, like I have to have like those stupid little reminders, like go check that the chickens have water, feed the dog.
Sure. Sure. You've got a lot going on. So.
Yeah. So, and like the chickens can't tell me that they need water, so I need that little checklist to say, go make sure they have water. And then on the other side of that same board, I have chores that need to be done every week, and I have them split up by day. And there's no pressure to get all of them done each week, but my goal is to have at least one thing per day checked off. So like for Monday example, I have vacuuming and sweep and Swiffer on the checklist. So if I don't get to vacuuming, I want to at least make sure that I sweep and Swiffer the floor. And I put it there because then it's in black and white. So my husband knows, like, okay, this is what still needs to be done around the house. Like, he can just look at it and he can see me running around like a chicken with my head cut off. And be like, oh, well, clearly she still needs the vacuuming to be done. Maybe I can take the initiative and do that. Now, initiative is something that needs to be worked on, but I'm at least like making those steps. And I just recently, I have another whiteboard that's a little bit bigger, and I wrote out our weekly schedule and I color coded it. So like things like Yoshi's swim lessons are in one color. All the classes I teach are in another. Anything that my husband has going on through the week is a different color. And then I've got homework due dates listed on there. So my husband knows, like, okay, this day she has something due. I should make sure I would take the kid. Instead of me being like, I have homework, take the kid.
That sounds like an excellent use of your strength of being creative to help with the chaos. Sounds like a great solution, a great start to try to balance everything that you've got going on at the same time.
Yeah, I definitely, I'm really good, like one tap works really good, but when I add him to the spin, it's a lot more of a balance, because I mean he's got his own stresses and his own chaos, and sometimes we clash and we throw each other off, but maybe by giving ourselves a little bit more defined parameters is what, as far as each other's needs, might be helpful to kind of reach a better balance between both of us.
Absolutely. It sounds like you've got yourself balanced fine, but then to add in another individual into that and to maintain all the balance can be challenging at times.
Yeah, it's, I feel so bad because my husband has told me, like, I would do so much better if I lived alone.